I've come to the conclusion that we're likely to have a roaring stock market for the next year or two. I think that tariffs could possibly be good, which is a turnaround in my thinking. I'm a moderate Democrat, and I'm usually opposed to most things Trump is proposing. But I can see how the tariffs could possibly work, which is a revolution in my mind. And then I'm going to also present, after we go over the tariffs, I'm going to present my best stock picks. Part of the reason I think tariffs might work is because he's using them as a bargaining chip. He threatened Canada and Mexico with tariffs. Now, it's a big deal, Canada and Mexico. We get 4 million barrels of oil per day from Canada, okay? We get 40% of our fruits and vegetables from Mexico. I never imagined that we were getting that much fruits and vegetables from Mexico, and so that's been a revelation to me. But I don't think he would tariff those particular items, or I think his aim is mainly at manufactured goods. Notably in Mexico, it'd be something like if they started to produce cars. Now, Elon Musk has threatened to build a gigafactory in Mexico, but I bet those plans are put in cold storage, given the idea that the tariffs would be placed on him, which pretty much would bar that from happening. And also, since he's talked about this, Justin Trudeau has come down and talked to Trump as the leader of Canada, and more or less Trump says he got everything he wanted from Canada. So he's definitely using it as a bargaining chip. It's also the BRICS countries, which are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. They want to develop an alternate currency to the United States dollar. The United States dollar is the world's reserve currency. We get all kinds of advantages from that. They want to form their own currency that would be more favorable to their trading interests. But Trump has more or less said, if you go away from the United States dollar, I'm going to put 100% tariff on everything from your country, and you're not going to have access to the United States economy. And I think that's going to work because none of those countries can afford to not have the United States as a trading partner. And I got to admit, Trump doing that, threatening them with 100% tariff, or if they do not keep the United States dollar as the reserve currency. My thought about that is, why hasn't this been done before? Are we so afraid that other countries might get upset with us that we do not bargain in our own interest? Trump will never be accused of not bargaining in the United States' best economic interests. And then there's less regulation, which in the short run, it can be a good thing. Like I say, for the next year or two, I think it's like guaranteed in my mind that we're going to have an explosive upward economy. And I think we're going to have a similar stock market. But I think what the problem is, in my mind, and what keeps me a moderate Democrat is the long-term view. There are other factors besides the economy to be kept in mind, which I think could be lost sight of, which could be dramatically negative. But hey, you might as well party while the party is going. And there is an overall thing about tariffs that counteract some of their possible negative effect. That is, when he places a tariff, it usually makes the United States dollar stronger. And when the United States dollar is stronger, even if they raise their prices, and even if there's a tariff on those goods, because our dollar is stronger, the price of foreign goods goes down, which counteracts the negativity of the tariff. So and we don't know exactly how that's going to play out. And my thought is, I think he reacts strongly to the stock market. He will take his cue from the stock market. If the economy starts to go down or the stock market goes down because of one of his tariffs, he will reverse it or make an exception or do something to that effect, which he did in his first term, frankly. But I think we're going to have a roaring Christmas rally here. It's already started to take off a little bit. I think if you get a dip, it's a buying opportunity in my mind. Let's look at some of my picks. The most likely trade after the Trump election was crypto, specifically Bitcoin, because there's talk of creating $100 billion crypto Bitcoin reserve fund. And Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, who was against crypto, is going to be fired by Trump and replaced. So it seems like an easy trade. Trump is thinking about having his own crypto coin. That's how much he's into it. So I think that's a pretty safe bet. Looking at the chart, you can see Bitcoin has made over 39% in the last month. And it recently had a little bit of a dip down, and I got stopped out because I put a 4% stop loss on all my stocks, and I got back in. So I'm back in it. And it's a long-term trade in my mind, as long as Trump and his administration is positive on it. I may get stopped out at times, but if things look decent, I will get back in fairly quickly. I'm not a die-hard believer in Bitcoin. In fact, I was a Bitcoin skeptic, but it is a decent trade, and I think a reasonable trade given the circumstances. One of my favorite stocks is Robinhood, an innovative stock and crypto trading platform whose symbol is HOOD, Hood, and it has a relative strength of 70, and it's made over 83% in the last 6 months. I started trading it in the low 20s, I think around 22, and I will get stopped out on a dip sometimes, and I almost immediately get back into it. If not the same day, probably the next day. But for me, it's getting close to doubling, and I've been doing this for about 2.5 months. So it's really been a profitable trade. Another great stock is Palantir, symbol PLTR. It's made to over 218% in the last 6 months. And this month, it's really skyrocketed. I mean, when it was over 40, it was supposedly overvalued, and it's gone to 67 during November. It went from 40 to 67. Wow. I think I'll keep it. Its relative strength is 74, which indicates in this case that there's still strong demand for it. And then there's AppLovin. And what can we say beyond we love AppLovin Corporation, symbol APP. It's involved in mobile advertising, and in 6 months, it's gone up over 300%. In November alone, it's gone up from 150 up to 336. Wow. I've been hanging on since October, and what a ride it's been. And I get stopped out sometimes on an intraday basis, and I almost always just get right back in. And I'm not going to stay out until we have a steep loss. We have a steep drop-off. That's what it would take for me to stay out of the stock. It has a relative strength of 80, which in this case, it should indicate that it's overbought. It's been overbought a long time. it's an indication of strong demand also. And Reddit, what a stock. One of the newer social medias, and it's curing me of my post-traumatic stress for having gotten out of Facebook. I was in the Facebook IPO, but I made a little quick money and I got out. Oh God, who could have seen that Facebook was going to be the roaring success that it was? At least I couldn't back then. But I resolved if I ever saw a similar situation, I was going to get in there and hold it. And that's been my commitment with Reddit, symbol RDDT. And looking at the chart, you can see that it's made over 140% in the last 6 months, and it's really taken off since the end of October. It was about at 80, and it's now at 140. Wow. And its relative strength is still only 62, so it's not overbought. So, wow. I think this is one, again, to hang on to and probably buy the dip on. So I think I'm very bullish right now. I think the Trump trade is going to work out if he doesn't go to extremes and he plays it correctly. He has things going in his favor, and he should be able to do some of the things he wants. I just hope he doesn't get carried to too much of an extreme. That's the way I roll. Thank you.